In the golden heart of the Serengeti Game Reserve, where the vast plains stretch endlessly beneath the African sun, one name was spoken with reverence: Mr. Mackan. For over half a century, his presence had been a constant in this untamed land, a silent guardian in the battle between poachers and the wild. Not a man of weapons, but of unwavering resolve, Mackan's legacy was built not on force, but on compassion and protection. His connection to the land and its creatures was profound, a bond that extended far beyond the typical human-animal relationship. Locals often whispered that even the lions sensed his spirit. They spoke of a particular lion, a once-wounded male whose fate was forever entwined with Mackan's. It was 15 years ago, when the lion was but a cub, learning to navigate the trees of the savannah. His first attempt at climbing ended in a fall, and his injuries left him vulnerable. But Mackan, with the gentle touch of a man who understood the wild's delicate balance, was there. He saved the cub's life, and from that day forward, the lion seemed to carry a quiet understanding of the man who had given him a second chance. Even after his retirement, Mackan refused to rest. Each week, he ventured into the reserve, checking on the injured and elderly creatures that others had forgotten. The Serengeti, on this blistering afternoon, was a landscape of heat and dust. The sun blazed down, merciless and unyielding, as the temperature soared to 45 degrees Celsius. The air shimmered with the intensity of the heat, and even the grasses seemed to tremble under its weight. This was a day that tested the limits of endurance, where every step felt like an effort against the suffocating warmth of the earth itself. But Mr. Mackan, ever the devoted protector of the reserve, did not flinch. Against his doctor's stern warnings and the concerns of his closest friends, he drove alone, his weathered hands gripping the wheel with a determination that was as unshakable as the land he had served for so many years. His destination was a rhino, a survivor of a brutal poaching attempt, its body scarred by the violence it had endured. Despite its wounds, the rhino had pulled through, limping but alive. As Mackan arrived, his breath shallow and his brow glistening with sweat, he approached the injured creature with a mixture of relief and concern. There was alive against the odds, but as he neared the rhino, a sharp pain seized his chest. His body, no longer as strong as it once was, gave way. He collapsed to his knees, the dusty earth beneath him feeling strangely cold. His final breath, though heavy, was not one of panic, but of resolve. It was the breath of a man who had lived a life of purpose, who had given all for the wild he loved. By late afternoon, the sun still burned fiercely above the Serengeti, casting long, wavering shadows across the dry plains. It was there, beneath the sparse shade of a thorn bush, that Rangers Elijah and Musa found him. Mr. Mackan, lying beside the injured rhino, his lifeless body gently curled as though in sleep. His face was calm, peaceful even, touched by the faintest trace of a smile. The rhino stood nearby, unharmed, as if keeping a quiet vigil. News of his passing swept through the reserve like a wind across dry grass, silent, then roaring. Rangers wept openly, guides lowered their heads, and across the savannah, an uncanny stillness fell, as if the wild itself had paused to grieve. The following morning, under the broad arms of an ancient baobab tree, Mackan's favorite resting place, the staff gathered to honor him. It was a modest ceremony, woven with stories, silence, and sorrow. Then, from the shimmering edge of the horizon, came movement. A massive male lion, mane golden and unkempt, body lined with old scars, strode into view. There was no hesitation in his step, no fear. He walked with purpose, slow, deliberate, directly toward the mourners. Gasps broke the stillness. For many, it was the lion from Mackan's past, the cub he once saved. Now he had returned. As the lion drew closer, a hush fell over the gathering. Rangers instinctively reached for their rifles, hands trembling between duty and disbelief. The mourners stood frozen, caught between awe and fear. The lion's growl rumbled across the plain, deep, thunderous, ancient. His amber eyes, fierce yet strangely familiar, fixed on the figure beneath the canvas-covered casket. Then, something extraordinary happened. Within meters of the fallen ranger's body, the lion slowed. His head dipped low, his growl softened to a murmur, not of menace, but of mourning. The atmosphere shifted. The tension, taut as a drawn bow, slowly began to unravel. Step by step, the lion approached the simple, small wooden bed upon which lay a human body covered by a white cloth, its movements cautious and respectful. It circled the makeshift coffin once, gently rubbing its body against the side of the small wooden bed as if recognizing a long-familiar scent. Then, without a sound, it lay down beside the small wooden bed, its massive chest rising and falling, its eyes closed in solemn stillness. No one moved. Not a breath disturbed the air. What they witnessed defied all logic, a creature of the wild, paying respects not as a beast, but as something more, a being who remembered, a heart that had not forgotten. And in that sacred silence, man and lion were not opposites, but kin, bound by memory and something deeper still. The casket, simple and strong, was lifted gently by Mackan's fellow rangers. Wrapped in a canvas marked with years of wear, adorned with humble flowers picked from the nearby bush, it began its final journey toward the great baobab, the place where Mackan had so often sat in quiet thought. And behind it, step for step, came the lion. His presence was not forced nor commanded. He simply followed, as though he understood, as though he too had come to say goodbye. But as he neared the casket draped in canvas and flowers, the beast lowered his head. There was no growl now, no challenge, only silence. When the casket was placed into the earth, the lion lay beside the grave, his massive body still, his eyes fixed on the resting place of the man who had once pulled him from death. As the first handfuls of soil fell upon the coffin, the lion's breath grew heavier. And then, from deep within him, came a sound no one present would ever forget, a roar. Not of power or dominance, but of sorrow. A sound older than time itself. A farewell, carried on the wind, from one soul to another. From lion to man. From wilderness to legacy. The lion did not leave that day. Even as the mourners drifted away and the sun began its slow descent across the golden plains, he remained, a silent sentinel beside the grave. Rangers watched from a respectful distance, unsure whether to fear him or honor him. But it became clear in the days that followed that his vigil was not a fleeting gesture. He returned again and again, each time alone. Sometimes at sunrise, other times in the blazing heat of midday. He would sit in silence, his gaze fixed upon the resting place of the only man who had ever touched him without fear. Locals began to whisper his new name, Mackan Shadow. Tourists, once eager to capture lions on the hunt, now stood quietly behind fences, watching a different kind of power. It was grief and reverence, and something deeper still, the echo of a bond that defied explanation. For in the heart of this untamed land, a lion, fierce, wild, and once wounded, had become a living monument to a man who gave everything to protect it. And in his silent watch, he reminded all who saw him, even the wildest soul can mourn. In the days that followed, the Serengeti fell unusually quiet. The reserve declared a day of silence in honor of its fallen guardian. For 24 hours, not a single engine roared, not a single tour group moved. Instead, the sounds of the wild, bird song, rustling grass, distant roars, took center stage as if nature itself paused in respect. Elijah and Musa, the young rangers who had found Mackan, stood by the baobab tree with solemn hearts. The lion's tribute had stirred something deep within them. They vowed, then and there, to carry forward Mackan's mission, not with bravado, but with humility, patience, and unshakable compassion. Word of the lion's mourning spread across borders. News outlets covered it. Conservationists spoke of it in conferences. Children in distant schools painted pictures of a lion beside a grave. And here, on this channel, we honor that same legacy, the enduring connection between man and the wild. A reminder that even the fiercest creatures are capable of love, of grief, of memory. If you believe in stories that bridge worlds and reveal the beating heart of the untamed, we invite you to like, subscribe, and journey with us through the wonders of nature. For in the story of Mackan and his lion, we are reminded, true guardianship leaves a mark not only on the land, but on the soul.